Hey everyone, this is Pete. Welcome back to Atari A to Z, a series of short playthroughs of Atari 8-bit games, some which I grew up with and some which are new to me. Today is one of the latter because it hadn't been programmed when I was growing up. This is X8, which was developed in 2013, and it took first place in the Atari Bitbiter User Club software contest in 2013, the Atari Bitbiter User Club, also known as ABUC. So ABUC claims to be the largest Atari 8-bit user club in the world, and it remains active to this day, unlike a lot of other user groups. They hold regular meetings, they have events, and they have a quarterly disc magazine. Most of their stuff is in German though, so do bear that in mind if you want to check out their things. Their software competition has been running since 2003, and it's a really good place to find modern Atari games and software, so be sure to check out their website. I'll put a link for it down in the video description. Yeah, for now, let's go play X8 and see the winner of the 2013 competition. Okay, here we are with X8. The idea by Jose Pereira, and that's moved by too quickly for me to read the rest of the credits. Code by Zuel, and sprites by St86 and TMR. So, as I say, this was a game from 2013. And generally speaking, when you have more recent Atari 8-bit games, they tend to be more technically impressive. Simply because the modern... It's usually the demo scene that comes out with stuff like this. The modern Atari development community, let's call them that. They have much greater mastery over the hardware than we did back in the day. For various reasons, really. The main one being that the hardware is just better documented today than it was back then. So when Atari hardware was new, although a lot of stuff about it was fairly well documented, even by Atari themselves, there were still plenty of things that people had to learn, new techniques that people came up with, and things which became sort of standard practice over time. And the advantage of sort of developing stuff for older systems in sort of the current time is that you've got all those years of experience and acquired knowledge to be able to draw on. So you're not having to learn things from scratch. You've got the experiences and the knowledge of hundreds and thousands of previous developers to draw on. And I can already see this game making use of some common techniques that you see quite a lot in the more technically impressive Atari games. So chief among those is something we've talked about a few times on this series previously, which is a technique called display list interrupts. And what that is basically a programming technique where you get your program to interrupt the Atari partway through its drawing the screen. Or partway through its processing what it's going to put on the screen is probably a more accurate way to put it. And so, rather than telling the Atari to draw an entire screen in, I don't know, say graphics mode 4 or whatever, you tell the Atari to draw a bit of the screen in one graphics mode. And then you tell it to draw a bit more of the screen in a different graphics mode. And you tell it to draw a bit more of the screen in a different graphics mode again. And so obviously there's a limit to how much you can do that without affecting performance too much. But when you were writing stuff in machine code, so a lot of stuff back in the day would have been written in assembler rather than a more friendly language. Yeah, you're basically calling on parts of the computer directly. And so you can get away with doing quite a lot of stuff. And display list interrupts were used pretty extensively by game developers in particular to make it look like the Atari was capable of things that it wasn't supposed to be able to do. So in games like this, for example, what we've got at the top of the screen is we've got the interface shown in quite a low resolution graphics mode. And the advantage of the low resolution graphics modes is they could display more colours on the screen at once. But then if you look down towards the middle of the screen where the enemies are appearing, those enemies are much more detailed. They're much higher resolution. And so, more than likely using display list interrupts, they're probably being rendered in a completely different graphics mode. Likely graphics 8, I think it was. So graphics mode 8 was, I think it was 320 by 200 resolution, but just 2 colours. So if you look at the enemy sprites that are coming in, and the explosions in particular, you can see they're made up of just 2 colours. There's the highlight colour and the transparent colour. But because you're surrounding them with so much colour in the rest of the game design, so you've got those scrolling backgrounds that are very colourful. You've got the interface. You've even got those sort of purple stripy bars either side of the play area. It's a visual trick. It makes you not notice the fact that the enemies are only 2 colours. And similarly, the fact that the player sprite is using lots of shades of colours. And that would have likely been achieved using a hardware sprite. One of the Atari's players, they were called. Perhaps several players overlaid on top of each other, because that was the most common means of doing multicoloured sprites. And the advantage of those is that they were kind of independent of graphics modes. And so regardless of what graphics mode you were using, you could overlay players on top of it. And that's more than likely what's going on here. I can't say for sure, because, you know, I didn't program this game, but that's what I imagine is going on under the hood here, certainly. But yeah, if we observe what's going on though, this is pretty much technically flawless. So we're not getting any sort of flicker on the sprites. We're not getting any graphics corruption down the sides of the screens. So sometimes in scrolling games, you can sort of see the screen being drawn ahead of where you are. Like the NES was particularly prone to this. And indeed the home computers as well. Like if something wasn't programmed very well, yeah, you could see the screen being drawn in and then scroll in. No sign of that here. Got lovely smooth scrolling. Nicely smooth player movement. Not getting any slowdown even when there's loads of enemies and bullets on screen. Yeah, this is just a frankly stunningly put together piece of software. And it's no surprise that it won that software competition. Yeah, this is a really solid piece of work. From a design perspective, in sort of mechanical design, you could maybe make a few tweaks here and there. I do think the levels go on slightly too long. And I think you get too many lives as well. But really, that's a minor complaint at best. But yeah, we've even got stuff like parallax scrolling going on. I mean, I know the parallax background isn't very complicated. It's just a few stars, and not a very dense star field at that. But it's a parallax background nonetheless, and that would have been incredibly exciting to see back in the day. I'll tell you what this does remind me of, is sort of towards the twilight years of the Atari 8-bit. There was a software company that I forget the name of. I think it was something like Harlequin Software, I want to say. They put out a bunch of really technically impressive games. They had a lot in common with what we're seeing here. So they had very strong, colourful use of graphics, They often had very good musical soundtracks using the Pokey chip. And really solid gameplay. So examples of games that they put out that I can think of offhand. There's a game called Plastron. It was a little bit like Moon Patrol. In that you were sort of driving a thing over, I think it was a lunar surface. And sort of jumping over things and shooting things. There was supposed to be an Atari 8-bit port of Shadow of the Beast at some point. Shadow of the Beast obviously being most well known as an Amiga game with a ridiculous amount of parallax scrolling. And so just even getting that vaguely running on the Atari 8-bit would have been quite an achievement. I don't think that one ever came to fruition. Although, knowing the way the Atari community has worked over the years, there's almost certainly some prototypes floating around out there. Yeah, I'd be very curious to see how that ended up. If indeed it got anywhere at all. Because yeah, there's some real masters of their craft out there who really know what they're doing with the Atari hardware. So one example we've already seen on this series from back in the day was Jeff Minter. So Jeff Minter was great at taking full advantage of the Atari's colourful capabilities. So if you think back to Attack of the Mutant Camels, that had really stunning use of colour. And they were the team who worked at Zeppelin Games and Cognito. They were also excellent at taking full advantage of the Atari's capabilities. The graphics and sound between them. But yeah, the most fascinating stuff on this platform always comes when it's sort of working within its limitations. It's not trying to be a games console. It's not trying to do anything... Well, no, that's not true. It is trying to do things that it's not supposed to do. But it's not trying to sort of ape the experience of something else. The strongest stuff on the Atari is always when it's being unashamedly Atari. It's doing the things that the Atari was good at. And there were certain types of graphics, certain graphical styles that the Atari 8-bit was really good at. Certain things its sound chip was really good at. And certain styles of game that worked really well on it. Oh, this level's really difficult. A real difficulty spike on this one. Down to 3 lives. Don't know if we're going to make it through this one. Especially not with this weedy default weapon. Extra life. Invincible, take me through the bullet patterns. Oh, that's tight! How the hell do you do that? Not like that. Oh, that's interesting. The previous levels ended with a sort of narrow section for this kind of final conflict bit, but no, we got a wide open space here. Ooh. Oh, that went poorly. I've got gigantic death balls. Why aren't you dying? Last life. Oh, I think, yeah, let's just avoid those. Oh, we made it. Level 5. Aries. It's all gone purple. But yeah, this is a pretty solid game. I mean, it's fairly simple. So basically what we got is scrolling levels with preset waves of enemies and occasional obstacles. The power-ups make things a bit more interesting. So power-ups are obviously something we take for granted in shoot-em-ups today. In earlier shoot-em-ups on the Atari days, didn't tend to see them quite so often. You might have fuel pickups, but actual things that would give you different weapons, relatively unusual. But again, obviously this is a more recent game, so as well as taking advantage of knowledge of the platform and how to program for it, modern developers can also take advantage of more modern design tricks as well. But not really a trick having a power-up, is it? But sort of more modern design conventions, I think, is what I wanted to say. But yeah, I'm enjoying this. As I say, levels are a little bit long for my liking, and it might have been nice to have a bit more variety in the music. But what we do have here is a nice complement to the action, certainly. And it's satisfying. It's got that satisfying feel that shoot-em-ups need. Especially when you got this weapon, which really seems to sort of rip through enemies. Got a bit of variety in enemy types. There's some taking... Oh no! Oh no! Some taking a few more hits. Some dying in one. And the obstacle keeping things interesting as well. Would it be cool to see some bosses? It's like all we got at the minute are the sort of enemy swarms we get at the end of the stage. So it would have been cool to see an actual boss fight. But again, that's not something I can recall ever actually seeing in an Atari game. At least not in the form we know today. I mean, on this series previously we've seen Satan's Hollow. And that had its fights against Satan. Which were technically boss fights. But I'm thinking sort of your more traditional shoot-em-up boss, you know, like with a really large, impressive sprite and learnable attack patterns and that sort of thing. Not something you tend to see on the platform. But that's fine. And this game is already a pretty impressive achievement, and it's entirely possible that they decided to deliberately set some constraints on themselves. That's not at all an unusual thing for demo scene programmers to want to do. It's sort of say, right, I'm going to make a shoot 'em up within, I don't know, 90k or whatever. And then see exactly what they can achieve in that small amount of memory or disk space. Alright, level 6. Now pink this time. I wonder how many levels this has. We may well find out. After that one difficult level, it seems to have got a bit easier again. Oh, we're starting to get some tricky bullet patterns again, though. Ooh, timing. Oh, another awkward narrow one. And some bullets after it. How? I don't even know how you'd do that. Oh, I lost my good gun. Trying to think what these force fields remind me of. There's a game that uses force fields that look just like these. I'm trying to think what it is. It's not coming to mind immediately. Oh, might be Shadow World by Synapse Software. Which is not one we looked at on this series yet, but yeah, that's a long-standing favourite of mine that we're going to have to take a look at some point. Oh no! Oh, stupid. Really dumb. Oh, but I got my good gun back. And I seem to be getting extra lives at the same pace I'm losing them at the moment. Yeah, so I think this could probably do with a bit of rebalancing and trimming the fat a bit. Levels are too long, and it's not difficult enough. Or at least there are some difficult bits, but for the most part it just feels a bit easy. Maybe I'm just good at shoot 'em ups. I'm not good at shoot 'em ups. I know that for a fact. Oh, I didn't mean to pick that up. Ah, get away! Oh. Are we done? No, we're not done. Missed every one of those. Oh no! Getting cocky. More? Still more? I'm determined to destroy at least one of those. Oh, we done it. Ah, now what? Uranus, your anus. I've got a cat trying to jump on me, so excuse me if I look a little tense for a moment. Said cat wants her dinner, I think. Meanwhile, I'm here playing the longest shoot 'em up in the world. 2 lives left. Yeah, I'm getting to a point where I'm ready for this to be over now. I don't dislike it, I just don't think there needs to be this much of it. I mean, I'm probably spoiled on sort of modern Japanese shooters that are done and dusted within 20 minutes. I've no idea how long we've been going so far, by the way. I'm probably going to look at the recording time after we're done here and be shocked and appalled. But, yeah, we'll see. You never know, we might beat the game.
always a possibility. The rate we're going, assuming there aren't 500 levels or something ridiculous, yeah, we may well beat the game. It would make a certain amount of sense for there to be 8 levels, wouldn't there? I don't know if they went that route though. Maybe we'll see. We've only got 2 lives left. Only got 3 lives left. I should probably stop collecting those if I'm ready for this to be over, shouldn't I? Oh yeah, see, the good gun makes short work of the enemy swarms. Oh, I didn't mean to pick that up. This gun's rubbish. Look at it. It's not even hitting with those diagonal shots. Oh, no. Are we done? No, still going. Ooh. Now we're done. Oh, there more? Level 8, Poseidon. Right, I guess we may well find out if this is the last level. Would have been nice to see a bit more kind of thematic use of the level names as well. So like, I hear Poseidon as a level name. I expect some sort of watery theme level. But no, we've got kind of the same but red. Yeah, this is definitely sort of plateaued in difficulty, about level 5 or so. And it just leaves the rest of the game feeling a bit like padding after that. There we go, we're done. Okay, so that was X8. And yeah, I quite enjoyed that. So I can see why it won the competition, because it's very technically impressive and it's a really solid shoot 'em up. It just goes on a bit too long and it doesn't have quite enough variety to it. So, yeah, not my favourite, but certainly worth checking out if you want to see what the Atari computers are capable of. Yeah, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please help out the channel by leaving a like or a comment and subscribing. New episodes of Atari A to Z are on Tuesdays and Atari ST A to Z on Thursdays. Check out atariatoz.wordpress.com for a full archive. Do please also check out my other projects moegamer.net, where I explore Japanese and Japanese-inspired games from yesterday and today, and videopackgames.wordpress.com, which aims to catalogue a small but well-formed library of the Philips G7000 Videopack computer, also known as the Magnavox Odyssey 2. You can also support my work on Patreon or buy me a coffee. You can find links to do both down in the video description. Thanks again, and I'll see you next time.